Hello and welcome to Real Chat with Kat, the podcast dedicated to igniting your entrepreneurial spirit and empowering you to conquer new horizons. In this podcast, we chat with inspiring entrepreneurs on their journey to success through some amazingly insightful and expansive conversations. These episodes thrive on thought-provoking chats where our guests fearlessly explore their path to success, sharing their experiences, failures, and triumphs. No topic is off limits as we deep dive into the talked about and not so talked about pieces it takes to build a business, overcome limiting beliefs, deal with personal struggles, and everything in between that shapes our lives and our businesses. I'm your host, Kat Polsonelli, creator and founder at The Lotus Effect, where we believe that success is not just about strategies and tactics, it's about cultivating a powerful mindset and creating customized business operations that align with you and your true purpose. Whether it's mastering time management, improving productivity, enhancing leadership skills, or simply fostering a growth-oriented mindset, we'll provide you with the tools and strategies to flourish in both your business and personal life. I'm so excited to have you join us today in this episode, so get ready to feel empowered and inspired as we learn together and from one another on how to rise above challenges, break through limitations, and unlock our full potential. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Real Chat with Kat. I am so excited to have you here with me today, and I have the coolest guest ever. I love this person so much. She's so much fun. I actually teased her because I was recently on her podcast and she had this beautiful, amazing introduction. And I was like, I wish I could give that to you. But I'm going to let her introduce herself. So Natalie, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today.
I'm so glad to be here and I adore you and just what an honor. I'm Natalie Petersen. I have my little dream that I lean into is called Bloomstruck, and it is a place where I just try and create as much magic as I can. It's kind of my bounce off, my launching pad for my podcast that you were a guest on called Think Out Loud with Me. And then I'm building out what I believe to be a place, or what I intend to be a place for connection. I meet such incredible people like yourself and other healers and guides and speakers and mentors. And I want to be able to connect. I feel it in my blood and in my bones to be a connector between these fantastic humans who have so much to offer, and the people that are curious about healing. I call them, the healing curious. And these are folks they don't know where to start. They don't know how to start. They're scared to start. They think it's too expensive to start, or it's a scam, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
there's even women that are like, and men, I should say, all walks, the entire spectrum, that they're just too busy. I'll get to it I'll get to it later. So yeah, tools, classes, panels, podcasts, you name it. I'm dishing it up. I'm attempting to. I am attempting to. Yeah, but thanks for
I
having
love
me.
it.
I'm so stinking glad to be here.
Yeah, you are so welcome. Now I've got to ask you, because it's something I ask every guest, but what got you into this space? What made you want to start something like this, right? Because when you think about it, most of us are like, I have all this trauma, I have all this crap. We don't usually think like, I just want all these healing, curious people to just be around me. So
hmm
give me a
hmm
little bit of the backstory. What kind of made you decide that this was where you needed to be?
Well, it all started back in 1974. No, I'm just joking. It did start. It probably started lifetimes before that. I have always been, so I've always been a teacher at heart. I've always held, I think about throughout as a young person and then into my career, I was always the person with people in my office, picking my brain, Can I just spend some time? Hey, Natalie, what do you think? So I've always had that connection and knowing people like you need to talk to this person or let's go talk to this person, right? Or let's holler this way. And so I've always been a connector by nature. My like the crux of my of the last several years the like where my backstory really gets juicy is when I got sober, which will be 6 years in a couple of months or a couple of weeks. um, and I I got sober really, it was easy for me. I quit drinking. I don't know if you have read or ever listened to Mickey Singer, The Untethered Soul. And he talks about people will say, how do I don't know, I can't do it. I don't know how to get sober. I don't know how to quit drinking. And he'll just tell you, just you stop. You don't put a drink in your mouth. And that just clicked with me. So I stopped. But what I didn't do was do any type of figuring out what the hell was going on and why I was drinking for so many years, like since I was a
Mm-hmm.
teenager, so heavily, right? And so for the first couple of years of sobriety, I didn't drink, but I was a manic mess. I really I traded addictions, if I'm being totally honest. Went from, alcohol to marijuana and shopping and just being just a little out of my mind. And then I came into a space of crisis, kind of scary. I say I was circling the drain. I remember it very vividly and started to get myself some help. And as I started getting myself help, I started to realize the beauty of the healing world and the circles that I was running in and the men and the women and the just humans that had their hand out, and they came from all walks. And it was where my podcast actually started. It was my chiropractor, it was my Reiki master, it was my astrologer, it was um, my massage therapist. It was like anybody that I could, that they were all of these people that were sharing their magic with me, and things were clicking. And I started realizing, that this medicine that I was consuming for my soul could be medicine for other people as well. And um, that's really when I started to dig into this concept of being a connector. Not only do I love I love being in circles of, healing's hard as hell, right? It's not pretty.
Mm-hmm.
It's messy, but shit, it's beautiful. It's incredible to witness healing, and to be a part of that and be a part of those circles, those healing circles. I was in, and whatever I can do to pay it forward. I like to think that I had my hand extended for so long, and just holding on to people and grabbing and actually like grabbing their legs and not, like a little kid, like around their calf muscles, and then finally getting my wits about me and getting myself in a space, in a healthy space where I could turn and put my hand out and say, either it's going to be me that helps or it's going to be I can connect you. So yeah, that's brought me fully forward to today, and yeah, in just a much different place. Um, and happy to be here. I wouldn't be here without all that, right?
Yeah. It's interesting. One, it's just beautiful to see the full circle moment, and congratulations on the 6 years, because I've
Thank
heard so
you.
many stories of people that have been through different types of addictions and things like that, and how it destroys their life. And what's really interesting is we I feel like when we think of addiction, we directly go to like alcohol and drugs, but there's so many other types of addictions that we don't necessarily call an addiction, right? But like people pleasing, wanting to fix everything for everyone because that should make you feel better. That's an addiction because you don't know how to self-regulate. You don't know how to handle things, right? Going into relationships with the wrong people on a repetitive basis, that's an addiction because it's a safety net, right? That your body is aware of and it's okay with it, even though there's pain because it knows how to handle that pain. So it's really interesting when you think about the word addiction and what it truly does mean, right? I mean, you said so yourself, you did shopping and different things. And I've heard of people doing that, right? Where they're like, oh, I do that to make myself feel better. But then it becomes such a pattern that it literally is an addiction. And I think that we need to think about that a little bit more versus just drugs and alcohol as the only
Mhm.
types of addictions, because we are all looking for ways to self-soothe. It just may not be in the dictionary as that is what we are doing, and that is the addiction that we have. And then, being able to come out of that, you talk about how you had like this full circle moment, but it's like, if I wouldn't have went through that, I wouldn't have got here. I had a really interesting conversation with someone yesterday, and we got to talking about different stories and things that we had been through. And she said, I love that you've been through this initiation that has
Mm.
brought you to where you're at. And I thought, how interesting is that word? Like we think about it, we think about our failures, we think about our life choices, we think about the bad decisions and all of that. And she equated it to an initiation. And going through that initiation and coming out on the other side meant that we now are the teacher, we now are the leader, we now are the people that can put our hands out to help the other people. And sometimes you have to go through certain initiations, certain journeys in order to be able to like fully step back, right? And just be able to see everything around you and then be like, okay, this is how I know that I did it. This is why I know why I did it. Now I can start offering to other people. But I
Mhm.
thought that was such a beautiful way to put it because I think in our society, we're so good at drawing negative and positive, and we forget that some of the words that we see as like neutral or positive can actually describe the negative that we feel in our life.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, totally. I think on so many points I agree. You know, so in the first in your first points, just thinking about addiction, and my own, it is a very it's a very interesting condition to feel like you don't have control, to know that you don't have control of something and then decide to distract yourself from the knowledge that you don't have control of something. So I consider addiction to be disassociation, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's distracting yourself from what you know to be true. Now, some people would say they can't help themselves, and I have immense, like, I think about my own privilege in recovery, that I had resources, that I had people to call and to, I mean, from the circling the drain, I walked out of the bathroom and I made a phone call. The next day, I was on an airplane and I walked into the arms of someone who could help me. And I want to recognize that recovery like that it's not the norm, right?
Mm-hmm.
That it is, addiction is a very serious situation for so many people. And because it comes in so many flavors, and in so many cases, we don't even know, we're not aware. You talk about, like, codependency and the different ways that we disassociate through people pleasing, through being, we call it tap dancing, or being a martyr, or being a victim, or all of these different things that just, hell, why would I don't want to know all this. There's so many things, like, why would I want to know all this? You're right. And so it's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, thanks. I'll stay where I'm at. You can call this an addiction. You can call it whatever you want. I'm good being distracted, right? The other thing I want to that resonates with me with what you said is this concept of initiation. It makes me think of it makes me think of a not only because healing is not a before and an after so much as it is this this, it's like a gradient, right? And there's these thresholds in the initiation. There are thresholds of like levels, like you level up and you turn around, you're like, holy shit, that was hard, that was fantastic, I can't believe I made it, now what, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then as you continue to live and as you continue to journey, you're in whatever bubbles up for you, whatever situation that you couldn't have never predicted would come up. Your mom dies, or your like something happens with your child, or that taps something else in you. All of a sudden you're at another part of the initiation, right? And another threshold is upon you, and you're like, okay, this is going to be hard. I'm feeling things that I didn't even know I had. And now I feel like I have tools and resources to go ahead and take the next steps, eyes wide open, um, and continue to commit to healing, rather than absolutely like, oh my gosh, I would love to just go. And sometimes I do crawl into bed, turn on Netflix, disassociate, right? But yeah, that concept of initiation and the period of our life, like the healing that goes on over the course of a lifetime, is just it's a fantastic journey. I think I compare it to yoga. I don't do yoga. Let's get that straight. I do. I dabble in yoga. I dabble in it. Um, but the little dabbling that I've done, when a good yoga teacher, the ones that I've had, have when leaning into a stretch, you don't want to over lean. You don't want to overstretch. You're not trying to pull your hamstring, or you're not trying to pop your ligament out, right? And prove to everybody that you still have the joints and the flexibility of a 9-year-old, right? You want to lean into the stretch till you can feel your body take you on, and you develop a a place of, it's not pain, it's just at the edge of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you stay there, and there's a conversation that happens between your body and your muscles and your mind and your spirit, and eventually you can lean a little further, right? And you can lean a little further, and every day that you commit to a stretching routine and the different motions and movements that come with yoga, you're 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 able to lean further and further in, and you're healthier for it, right? It's like saddling up to something and just edging up to something and saying, I know you're there, and I'm going to get used to you, and then I'm going to take it another step further. That's what healing is to me. Good. It doesn't have to hurt. It's gradual. It's a commitment. And it's rewarding, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love this concept of yoga though. Like that's so like my brain just went like down this rabbit hole because I've dabbled in it as well. And you're right. They always talk about you want a slight discomfort, but not enough for it to be painful, just enough for you to feel it. And I do think that a lot of us decide not to heal because we don't know where to find the discomfort level versus the painful one, right? Or we aren't sure how much we can stretch. So it's like, if I just stay right here though, then I know that I'm good and like I'm not
Mhm.
going to hurt anything. When in reality, we don't realize what we're doing internally on a regular basis. And I think that for people that really are looking to not only heal, but just improve their own being, improve the way that they see things, improve the way that they handle things, improve the way they approach things, we have to remember that it's the small stretches, right? Those simple steps that build, that take us to where we want to go. We are in such a society where it's give me more now, finish it, figure it out, the get rich quick schemes and all the stuff. It's the same way when it comes to like working through trauma, right? You have people that are like, oh, you just do this and it's going to fix it all. And it's like, that's not part of the journey. If that was the case, we'd all be able to do it. We'd all be great. Look at what our world is. That's obviously not what happens.
Hmm.
But it's interesting when you think about trying yoga for the first time or getting a new job. You know that you don't necessarily know what the heck you're doing, but you're uncomfortable enough and confident enough that like you're willing to give it a try. And I think that that's the same thing that equates when we are working through our own pieces, especially for those that call themselves broken. One, you're not broken, but for those that feel like I don't even know where to go, I don't know where to start. It's those things. It's knowing and
Hmm.
remembering like there's been other things in your life that you've had to learn that you had no clue what the heck you were doing. Getting behind the wheel of a car. I had
Yep.
no clue what I was doing at 16, right? But I had enough confidence and the willingness to like, I just want to see if I can figure it out. And now I've been driving since I was 16. Well,
Right.
14, but that's a whole nother thing. But
But
it's things like
don't
that.
tell the law.
But when you think about that, and I feel like when we simplify it down for people that are at that cusp of making that decision, that's easier to grasp, that's easier to swallow than you should go to therapy and release all your demons and talk about all your past stuff and cry it out and you're going to be fine because not everybody's healing journey requires that.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I love this. I'm stealing that from you, by the way, because
Please
I
do.
love I love the yoga analogy. Like that makes so much sense. And if you think about it in yoga, you're never pushing super hard. You're not doing anything crazy. It's all about breathing. It's all about simplicity. It's all about taking
Hmm.
your time, right?
Hmm.
And I feel like that is the journey that we should be on. And I'm guilty of it. Like I go through things now and I'm like, oh, I have dealt with this for so long. Why am I not over it? Right? Like we still
Yep.
have moments, but I've learned to have that patience with myself a lot more outside of
Yeah.
the moments where I'm like, really, can we just please?
Well, so key to what you said for me is willingness.
Mm,
That's like such a huge, for me, I think that I always knew, like I have this really weird sense of, this is going to sound totally weird, but like I knew I would be here even with you. Like I knew someday I was going to have to get on with this. Like you don't just, as tough as you think you are and as fantastic a show person as you might be, we talk about buttons being pushed and like there's got to be a moment where you take responsibility for this shit, right? And where the miserableness of, for me it was this character that I was playing. Um well, let's do it now. So now there is such a gap between the character I was playing just to keep up with who I thought I needed to be, whether it was the people pleaser or the the bossy Girl Scout that, just if you don't have a plan, then don't talk to Natalie because that's all she does is, right? No compassion. If you don't, we'll sleep when we're dead, right? To who I am today with room for the humanness of individuals, right? And this willingness to be able to look at ourselves with a critical eye. We we don't like having a self-awareness as the base of all this is not easy.
yeah.
It's not easy to look at ourselves and say, wow, I really, okay, I see where I have responsibility in that miscommunication because I see where I came, from I grew up in a very passive aggressive house where we didn't talk about things. So man, I am like queen of passive aggressiveness. Even this morning, I called my controller and I said, I'm trying to be an adult today. This is a hard conversation, but I'm making a phone call rather than sending an email and being passive aggressive about this. Like finally being willing to step into the discomfort of who I of healing these little messy pieces of myself, right? And she was relieved to hear from me and relieved not to be on the other end of a passive aggressive email where I'm trying to fix something that, right? It was just so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're humans together. So willingness to become self-aware, to take a critical eye, and critical isn't about judgment. It's just about honesty. It's about reflection, and it takes time and it takes work, and it is uncomfortable. There's, the first parts of, I continue to like think about sobriety as like the massive chunk that it is. The first parts of that time of consumption, I was addicted to self-help, looking for the magic seed, looking for the magic bullet, taking like give me it was podcasts and books and tests and analysis and like everything that I could looking for something to just click, like click click
Yep.
click, I need something to click, right? Consume consume consume. But I was doing nothing with any of it. There wasn't a willingness for me to actually take myself on and apply any of it and actually take myself to task until I finally got to a place. I remember going out into my backyard, and I know when I'm onto something because I'll hit live on my Facebook feed and I'm like, I'm going live with this. And I got in my backyard and I was like, I'm kicking my own ass. I am so sick of my bullshit right now. I'm so sick of it. I am so ready to take myself on and figure out what makes me tick. Because I know I'm a badass. I know I can make things work. I know this about myself. What's holding me back? I'm ready to take it on. It's almost like an alter ego comes out and you're like, you can see yourself. You can step into this outside of the seat of yourself, right? And turn and be like, let's do this. But that's a massive willingness that you've got to lean into, and you've got to give yourself, and holy shit, now I'm tripping over my words because I'm excited about it. Grace. We have to give ourselves grace.
Ooh, that word. Yeah.
It's messy.
Yeah. Grace is that, and honesty is that was probably one of the hardest things I had to deal with, was being honest with myself. The things that I had allowed in my life because I didn't want to um go this direction, or I didn't want to like push this direction. I didn't want to, you know, that was a hard pill to swallow, but also giving myself grace was a big one, right? A lot of us women especially, we are the go go go, do all for everybody. If you're not doing something, you're being lazy, da 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 da. That was such a hard concept to break, such a hard concept, where it was like you said, humanness.
Mhm.
We allow other people to have mistakes. We allow other people to be like, oh, it's okay, it's fine, things happen. But then when we do it, we're like, how stupid are you? Why did you even, how can you, like, and it's really interesting when you think about that, how harsh we are with ourselves. Um, but I love the space that you're talking about, this like alter ego. It really is interesting once you start diving into this and really kind of putting things into play, and then shifting your focus to learning to love yourself for who you are and who you want to become versus hating yourself for what you've been through. And
Mm.
you really can kind of pull yourself apart. I love that you say that, because like I feel like that sometimes. Like I feel like I'm looking at myself and I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, this makes sense. This doesn't. Okay, know why I'm doing that. Like it's almost like you could take your life and like pull it apart and start looking through all the film, right? And like
Mhm.
pinpointing the things. And I think that that's been kind of the coolest thing, while it can be hurtful, because you're like, oh, well, this happened because of this situation I went through. Okay, I'm dealing with this because of what I felt when I was a kid. Like, yes, there's some twinge to it,
Mm-hmm.
right? That like,
Mm-hmm.
oh,
Mm-hmm.
but not enough to feel gut punched generally, because
Mm-hmm.
there's a love for what you've been through and what you've seen, and not a, I can't believe you did that, or I can't believe you went through that, or I can't believe you didn't make a better decision. So it's really being able to take yourself in the future and be able to look back
Mm-hmm.
and, like you said, give grace,
And
be
compassion.
honest, and
Mm-hmm.
have that compassion. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's so important on so many levels, um, for that. So when you're dealing with your healing curiosity people, what is one of the one or two big things that you feel like you remind them of, or just have to kind of mention to them as they're going through this journey?
Mm-hmm. What is it's perfectly on my mind, and it's the response that I would pull up no matter when you ask me this, and it is something that I've learned, and it's taken me a long time to grasp this. You were doing the best. You made the best decision that you knew how to, with what you had, with what the circumstances were. You have made so forgiveness, forgiving yourself is one of the most amazing feelings. And to go through the work it takes, and it's like it's crazy. Like if you think back to, for me, places that I abandoned myself. I disassociated, and I took part in the sex. I took part in the drugs. I took part in the drinking. I took part in the drunk driving. I took part in the the bitchy, catty, right? Just out of congruence with being a I'm not a bad human, but I partook in these things that just aren't that pretty,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I can beat the shit out of myself for them. But I'm the only person that's beating myself up. Those things are done. Those things are gone. They are in the past, and I am forgiven. And I have permission. I have given myself permission to move forward without that weight of shame, of regret, of I shoulda, coulda, woulda. Those The past has nothing to do with what you can do right this very instant. You can make choices that are in your highest and wisest interest. There is nothing that should stand in your way, especially not the past. Especially not the past. I just saw, speaking of yoga, I just saw this beautiful, I came across on Instagram. There's this jail, this prison down in Mexico, and they have an entire yoga program for this entire incarcerated population of men. It is absolutely, these photos and these videos of these men partaking in healing themselves and connecting with their source and saying, I am not the person that, and have it like, what do you mean they didn't know what they were doing and that was a bad decision and they did the best that they knew how when they shot that person, or they murdered that person, or they stole from that woman, or they whatever, fill in the blank. I'm sorry, but I believe it. That was when they made the choice. That was the best choice that they knew to do for whatever. And sidebar, it's none of my fucking business. They deserve healing. They deserve to find their source. They deserve to find their center and to watch. I mean, we were talking about finding reels that we could just like look at for hours. This is one I'm like, yes, connect to that forgiveness, that space in you where you become the unstoppable human. You're forgiven and you're beautiful. And what's next?
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. That's like it's like the perfect thing to end on. But I just want to like keep talking for the next like 2 hours. But you're so right. We do tend to beat ourselves up for whatever decision we made 2, 5, 10, 15. I've seen people do it for 20 years ago, but yet that's not what they're doing now. So like you obviously made a choice to do something different, and we have to start giving ourselves grace for those
Mhm,
moments that we aren't necessarily proud of, because we all have them. That's part of the human experience. The bigger
mhm,
piece is, did you learn from it? And did you decide to do something different moving forward? And if that's the
mhm,
case, then yes, like you are growing, you are learning, right? We forget that. There's so much perfectionism. There's so much, you're supposed to do this at this age, you're supposed to do this when you get to this, time in your life, crap. And we beat ourselves up when we don't meet those invisible expectations, when in reality, your expectations should be with you, depending on what you have been through on your journey. So,
mhm.
as we come to a close, and I know you just gave me like a beautiful message, but do you have any closing words, quote, or anything you'd like to leave the audience with?
Hmm. Gosh, no pressure.
None at
Uh,
all.
ooh, I would love to read a quote.
Okay.
I would love to read a quote because it's been on I'm writing a chapter in a new book, a collaboration with some other authors, and we were tasked with finding a quote to sum up to as a launch pad for our chapter. And the quote is by a beautiful human. His name is Jaya John, and he is a poet and he's a writer and just a beautiful human being. And it the quote, it kind of wraps all of this up for us. So it's the great project of your life is to become a safe space for yourself and all living things, to be imperfect and flawed, to regress and forget, to wander and be lost, to grow weary or unwell, to be abandoned or betrayed, to flush with despair or be paralyzed with terror, and yet wake again each day and resume this project. For each day you are given is a newborn miracle that sings. You still have time to become a living sanctuary. And wouldn't that be your greatest creation of all?
How cool is that?
Isn't that pretty?
That is so pretty. So pretty. You have to share that with me. Like you have to
I
send that
will.
to me. I need that. That is so pretty, like, and so deep on so many levels. Thank you, Natalie, for being a part of the podcast today
Yeah.
and sharing all of your wisdom and your insights and the messy middle that we
Mm.
all go through. Like, I appreciate
Hashtag
that.
messy middle.
Whatcha? Please do me a favor. Tell everybody then, how can they find you? How can they connect with you? How can they be in your world?
So Bloomstruck, like Moonstruck, but with the bloom of a flower, is my company. We'll call it company name, and I'm at bloomstruck.com. Digitally, the same handle on Facebook and Instagram. And yeah, I'm absolutely open for connection. Think Out Loud with Me is my chat cast. And it's on all of your major directories as well, and even an episode with you, my dear friend. So yeah, please reach out if I can be of service and be a connection point for you.
I appreciate that so much. Thank you again so much for being a part of the podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
You are so welcome. To everybody else that's out there listening, of course, we'll have all that information in the show notes to make it super simple for you to be able to connect with Natalie. Definitely check out her chat cast. It is phenomenal. She is amazing on so many levels. So you have to connect with her. Make sure you're following her online. And like she said, reach out if you have questions or you're looking for connections. I can't thank you again enough for being a part of the podcast today. And I hope that to everybody else that's listening, that whatever you needed to hear is the message that you got out of this. I know that we talked about several different things and I feel like it's all encompassing. However, I know that there's one specific thing that stuck out to you when you were listening to that. And that's all that we ask. Take that one specific thing and just test it out. Test it out and see what happens. See if it does something for you. And until next time, do one thing positive for someone each and every day and see the difference that it makes in your life. Catch you later. Hello again, and thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today. If you enjoyed this episode and it brought tons of value, we ask that you please share, like, and subscribe. Your support means the world to us and helps us to reach even more inspiring entrepreneurs who can benefit from these powerful conversations. If you haven't already, be sure to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform, as this feedback is an amazing gift that fuels our growth and helps us to continually improve this podcast. Looking for an extra dose of inspiration and empowerment? Then be sure to connect with me on social media. You can find me at The Lotus Effect, where I share valuable resources and tips while sharing my own journey of being an entrepreneur. And if you're interested in learning more about my coaching programs and services, be sure to check out my website at the-lotus-effect.com. Once again, thank you so much for being a part of Real Chat with Kat. Your presence and support makes all the difference. Remember, whether you find yourself in the depths of the mud or on the path of growth, we all have a unique journey. And just like the lotus, some of us start in the dirtiest of mud, yet as we rise and grow, we blossom into something beautiful, unique, and truly one of a kind. To all of my visionaries out there, keep rising and growing as you create your own Lotus Effect.